compromised. Beware of any callers, and if they knock or ring while you are listening to this call, it is almost certainly a death sentence if you open that door. Stay back, hide, and once you have heard this account, open a far window, jump out, and run for your life. If no one interrupts, count yourself lucky. You might live another day. Let us begin. His name? Me! Ha-ha! Mr. H here. This is another rousing adventure I had solo in the weird and woolly world. It brings together past and present and left me wondering about what might be in store for me as I traverse the tarpaulin of the material world and raise the ire of the undesirable. Location, somewhere north of Mars Hill, North Carolina. Date, November 2019. It began, like most of my cases. I received an urgent phone call from some frantic punter in the hinterland. He was onto a true mystery. This odd person from the hills of North Carolina called my line to tell me he had received instructions to call via a weak and mysterious FM radio signal emanating from the woods. The location was disclosed. I packed my radio gear and rushed off to Asheville, North Carolina. Down I-95 and over to I-40. Before getting into the investigation, I visited Joshua P. Warren's Paranormal Museum in Asheville. What a treat! It's gone now, unfortunately. Lots of oddities and etherically enhanced items to behold. Anyway, up I-26 to Mars Hill, and then off into the backwoods, as directed on my rough mapping given to me by the phone. Handy fella. My mind raced. Why would there be a pirate FM radio station in the middle of nowhere broadcasting a message to dial my private line? I had to know. Agents of the ethereal? A prank that had to be shut down? Lugging my equipment in a small backpack, I raced up and down some hills away from my car. Have you ever been to the hills of North Carolina? The land of the brown mountain lights and the moon-eyed people of past. This was the devil's domain, for sure. People practiced the most profane magics for centuries in those offbeat areas where most never trod. And the portals left behind are adventures to behold, which garrote logic and lucidity of the uninitiated. Over one ridge, I plowed into a pair of traipsing teens, giggling and chasing about like fools in the thick brush. A couple of young meth heads? I couldn't tell. I hid as they swung through the bushes in a meandering path. They were corporeal, or at least seemed so. Hormones running wild. These games kids play. I had no time for those lost in their own pursuits of puerile depantsing. Using a small FM/AM radio, I was able to tune in the crackling faint sound at the fated frequency of 101.1. As I wandered back and forth, I honed in on the richest signal strength and the nadir of a valley, and there was little there. A square stone, some kind of mile marker of ages past, and nothing that could transmit, nothing in the trees. Strange. Engaging my portable RF spectrum analyzer, I was able to wander around a little and come to the precise area of the signal. The sound emanating from this weak FM station was a series of repetitive Morse code messages. They weren't sounding out anything about my phone number. Only another set of numbers. I quickly wrote them down and deduced they were North American datum, pinpointing a location not far off. Further into the woods and over the hills using the NAD-27 system. Off I went! The pirate station was a ghost, leading to another mysterious location. Again, when I arrived, There was a complete lack of equipment for broadcasting, but a very vibrant signal sending out a voice this time. It was a plain and raspy voice, giving out another set of NAD 27 coordinates to a place several miles away. As if I wanted to spend all day hiking and sweating, chasing a sophomoric treasure hunt. But my interest was piqued. Someone had gone through a lot of trouble to set up a micro-broadcasting in this godforsaken forest. Off I went. And lo, in the third location, there was a definite signal emerging from an aged little steel tower woven into wood and underbrush. It was perhaps 20 foot tall and self-supporting. A lattice of metal coated with copious bird feces, a single dipole antenna atop, and a loudspeaker just below the apex. It had a rectangular concrete base jutting several feet upward from the valley floor. This thing was blurting out an old commercial for the Ideal Manufacturing Company along the White Horse Pike in Hammond, New Jersey. It sounded ancient. A swing pop tune from the 50s, perhaps. It repeated and repeated. I needed no equipment to test the signal. But what was the point of this nonsense? It was just a load of brash nonsense made to perplex the puzzled purveyors of improbable pursuits. And there I stood, like the buffoon I was for following this inane goose chase. But as I turned to leave, I heard a voice from the woods call out my name, my true identity, a name I can't avow here and now. The clear discharge of my identity froze me. I knew instantly what was transpiring. Perfidy! I was suckered into this espionage stratagem by someone of my past, and yes, indeed, stepping from behind a nearby tree was none other than Agent XJ5. And I let him know who he was to me. I exclaimed his name with bounteous disdain and a tincture of fear. He yelled back in anger, XJ6. Indeed! Nay, XJ5, his previous appellation when with the Institute. He was your predecessor, XJ7. He was the person we had pinned all of our hopes on. He was to be the torch of a new generation that could finally rip the lid off this demonic deception ensconcing our world and raise the group awareness, shine light into the recesses of the dank and evil controlling our realm. But no, he was willful and made a deal and rebelled against our order, to follow deleterious disharmony and attempt to foil our plans of illumination. And thus, this self-styled moniker after his true boss, the man of lawlessness, and the use of the Forbidden Six as his nom de guerre. The insolent puppy! What was his point in this woods? Was the phone caller his own doing, or an honest inquisitor? How deep of a hole had I been led down? I was soon to find. Your time is over, Mr. H. The lean whelp struggled to exhale from his compromised form. Join us or dissolve into history. Impudent cheek! Your very body is compromised, I hastily informed him with full knowledge of his condition. You are not only the devil's tool, but a plaything, and far from the beneficent canopy of Providence. You can do little to me, you know my ways. And he replied confidently, I do know them, and I have my own resources welling up from below. His sickly figure, clad in a typical black suit with white shirt, much like myself, wriggled and squirmed in place like a glitching NPC in a video game. And as he writhed about and let loose grotesque sounds of bones breaking and chains straining tight after wriggling invisibly through the forest undergrowth, he elongated tall into branches above his head. XJ6 was becoming something akin to a slender man. His new form was faceless and furious as it advanced towards me. But I never come alone. My friend of choice in this little venture was a black Diablo. A 12-gauge muzzle-loader pistol with double barrels. And worse yet for him, as I unholstered quick and raised, was what was inside this viperous sidearm of mine. One barrel was loosed into him. Ha! He knew my old ways, but not my new ones. It was a solid silver buckball. And through the billowy report of smoke obscuring us, I heard him cry out in horrendous agony. And my shot was true. I don't shoot from the hip, I shoot hips, and his right was destroyed by the precious projectile. Agent XJ6's right leg was ripped from his body and spun off into the overgrowth around him. He fell down, reclining backwards with a thud. However, he was prepared as well. That faithless shell needn't lift a finger before roots and tendrils ripped upwards from the forest floor and lifted high, forming arms and legs that pushed hard to elevate the radio tower skywards. Everything emerged from Earth, and before me was a humanoid construct some 40 feet tall, made of flesh, concrete, and steel. It was a character of Siren Head, made of the radio transmission tower. And from the megaphone on the tower was emerging a screeching EBS signal. This was too much. I knew it was time to go, swift and decisively. Running up the hills was hellish indeed, but down was almost like instantaneous translation in my fevered state of panic. Luckily, the verdant foliage was so dense that my titan pursuer was entangled in a canopy of crisscrossing timber. On the other hand, I had no idea where I was or where I was going. This would be treacherous indeed. After a few minutes, I looked back to see the troublesome tower on a ridge across a small valley from me. I took out my 45 ACP hollow points and shot a couple of mags into the thing. I heard the metal hits, and little else, aside from one to the muzzle, where I transformed that obnoxious EBS signal into a pathetic squeal as I fractured the speaker's diaphragm. Using the Diablo's last round, I shot the Goliathan enemy dead on, and despite being concrete, it was apparently made of lesser stuff, because the silver interacted with the base and bedeviled flesh to make it explode into hundreds of chunks of goopy protoplasm and ectoplasm. Out of the melee came XJ7, one leg gone. His transformed figure was grasping trees and wobbling hastily towards me at a desperate pace. I spun and ran again. He had height and youth on his side, but I still had distance. It was a weird chase across that blighted nowhere. And then a road. It was a small byway with little sign of life and less traffic. I had to wait as my only hope, 45 in hand and a fresh batch of bullets. I waited for 6 to emerge, and emerge he did. He flung himself forward in murderous desire. I emptied everything I could, but those lead variants were little help. As he launched across the asphalt at me, I saw him disintegrate as a surprise truck smashed him straight on. The vehicle careened and screeched to a halt. XJ6's remains were poofing out of existence around the metal carriage. The sign on the side of this truck said, A.O. Moving. A man emerged from the driver's side and asked if I was okay, and if I saw that thing he hit. No time to explain, I yelled. I just thank God you are here. I hopped in and he drove me off. It was odd that he asked me no questions from then on. The moving man was rather joyously escorting me to my car far across the hills and valleys of North Carolina as I checked my inventory and relaxed a little bit. While odd, I felt it was a true blessing to not be burdened with questions about spindly XJ6's possible demise, though I knew it wasn't the last I'd see him. But as the mover dropped me off and sped away, I realized something peculiar. and O? Ha! This man wasn't human. A and O, it stood for Alpha and Omega. Ha ha! Oh, glorious benediction indeed. My road was paved for me, so to speak. What ultimately did it all mean? All I can tell you, XJ7, is that our mission is more important than ever, and that the very hounds of hell are on to us every moment. They want us. Be stalwart, young comrade. We have mighty work ahead, and so your task of learning and digesting this odd information is paramount to our profit. Mr. H, over and out.
Like and subscribe before I die! And ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can say.
Depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?
That is a